She made pasta from scratch and made perfect angel hair spaghetti, just as Ginger had done. She made a salad of baby greens, walnuts, dried cherries, and poured herself a glass of rare wine. And then she set herself a place at the counter, lit the candles, and sipped her Chardonnay. An impudent little wine, insistent yet witty, with just a hint of grass, yet buttery. Petunia mused to herself, and then she put on her favorite opera and ate her pasta. And when she finished dinner, she got up and erased the phone message from the agency. The next morning, Petunia went into Ginger's closet, and she put on one of Ginger's elegant outfits. Getting Ginger's makeup right was the hardest part, and she put on one of Ginger's stunning silk scarves. And then the doorbell rang. And Petunia saw through the peephole, always look through the peephole first, that it was Ginger's first student of the day come to take the piano lesson. What could she do? She let him in. He went straight to the piano, opened the music, and began to play. Petunia listened and nodded at precisely the right time, the way she saw Ginger do. She pointed out the notes that he had missed. And when the lesson was over, Petunia pointed at the clock, and the student left. And so it went all day long. Petunia listened to each and every one of Ginger's students.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
She listened, and she listened, and she listened. So hilarious? She is pretty hilarious.
Yes.
By the time that Petunia had heard the last student of the day at 5 o'clock, she was craving a soak in that glorious mud. But just as she was getting ready to peel off Ginger's clothes and leap into her bubbling muck, she remembered that there was no food in the house. She had used it all up. So Petunia put on one of Ginger's loveliest hats and found the perfect handbag to go with it. She grabbed the car keys from the hall table, she leapt into that fiery little sports car, and off she went to the grocery store. And at the store, she picked the freshest vegetables, the firmest fruit, just as she had seen Ginger do. She got everything on Ginger's list. The grocery clerk was cheery and referred to her as Mrs. Folsom. He didn't know the difference. And he even helped her out to the car with her grocery bags. Petunia smiled, tossed him a very generous tip, and climbed into the little red sports car and drove away.
Oh my God. That's a sports car.
As Petunia opened the door, she heard Ginger from England, remember Ginger? Leaving a message on the phone. "Hello," she cooed. "You are probably running some of the errands on my list. I do hope you're taking very good care of dear Petunia. Give her an extra treat from me. Here's my number if you need me, 553-259-332369. Chesterton upon Punsey." Petunia looked at the clock. It was much too late for a mud soak. So after supper, she settled in to study Ginger's to-do list. Call the art museum and explain why I cannot attend the installation ceremony for the new statue on Thursday, it said. That was tomorrow. Too late to cancel? So all the next day, Petunia taught lessons, even though she couldn't seem to get her mind. She couldn't seem to get her mind off that mud soak, that mud hole. under the gazebo outside the window. And when the last student left, she tugged off her dress and was finally getting ready to leap into her beloved muck when the doorbell rang. She looked through the peephole. It was the car that was coming to pick Ginger up to go to the museum. She threw on a lovely gown, a hat, a scarf, and leapt into the car. When she arrived, the ceremony was well underway, and the speeches were endless, and it was hot and stuffy, and so many people. And Petunia began to find it hard to stay on 2 feet, because pigs, as you know, are more comfortable on 4. And just as the head curator, the leader of the museum, was about to conclude his speech, Petunia teetered. She was shaky and very, very dizzy. She braced herself against the statue, but it wobbled and it toppled to the floor and it shattered into 1,000 pieces. There was a gasp. Then total silence as the crowd glared at Petunia. Wait! Ancient Roman statues are always made of marble. This is just cheap plaster. A forgery, someone howled. Ginger Folsom has saved the day. By the time Ginger got home, it was once again too late to soak in her mud spa. And by the next morning, the headlines in the newspapers were full of stories. Virginia Folsom exposes forgery. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. Reporters wanted interviews. There were endorsements from soda companies, paint stores, and an athletic shoe company. And at noon, an invitation came from the mayor of the town himself for a dinner in Ginger's honor that evening. A car would pick her up at 6 o'clock. All that day, Petunia was distressed. Mud deprivation does terrible things to a pig. Petunia had put on her dress backwards and nothing matched, and when her students arrived, she just stared out the window at her beloved mud hole. She started to grunt, quietly at first, then small squeals. She missed all of the students' wrong notes and had them play their music upside down. Finally, the last student left. And Petunia was desperate to rip off her clothes and dive into that bubbly, warm, wet, squishy mud. Doorbell rang. It was the car for the mayor's dinner. Petunia squealed, wee, 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 as she dressed. Her snout was twitching, and she was grunting almost uncontrollably, but she had to go, and after all that Ginger had done for her, she couldn't let her down. Things are spiraling out of control. The dinner party was a gala affair. Almost everyone wanted to know the Virginia Folsom. Petunia stood right next to the mayor in the reception line, except for some small grunting noises. She was holding it together pretty well. Ginger Folsom, alias Petunia Pig, was once again a hit. That is, until they all sat down for dinner. Instead of using her silverware, Petunia suddenly slurped down her soup right from the bowl. And then she gobbled down the main course with loud smacking sounds. And finally, she sat back and let out this huge burp. At first, there was only stunned silence. But then the hostess said, Mrs. Folsom has just returned from a very exotic country, and she is merely demonstrating rare foreign customs.